And change away from tip-off between the Houston Rockets and the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Lakers haven't played since Saturday. Meanwhile, the Rockets have just 48 hours to regroup after being taken to the brink by the OKC Thunder in a 7-game slugfest. Jackie, are you more or less confident in the Rockets after their play in the first round?
Well, there's one portion of the Rockets that I'm much more confident about, and that's their defense, George. Who would have guessed that the Houston Rockets would be the answer to the question, who had the best defensive rating in a series in the bubble so far? That was the answer for the Houston Rockets. I still have some concerns about James Harden and, for that matter, Russell Westbrook in terms of how they manage in crunch time. Can they close the deal? You know, Zach Lowe has a wonderful story about Harden on our site today. And one of the things he talked about was elimination games. James Harden in those games averaged over 5 turnovers a game. People are so focused on his shooting. I'm more focused on, can you take care of the ball for both of those guys?
Yeah, you know, George, what Jackie said is absolutely correct. Defensively, they've been fantastic, and they've managed to play bigger than what their size is. Now, it's going to go 2 different ways against the Lakers. On the one hand, Anthony Davis is way more talented than Steven Adams. So stopping him is a lot harder. On the other hand, we've seen Anthony Davis kind of fall in love with his mid-range, mid-post game, and that kind of plays into what Houston wants to do defensively. So I think one of the things for the Lakers is the ability to maintain identity. I think that's what this battle of this series is going to be. Who is going to be able to impose their identity on the face of this series more?
To your point, Amin, Anthony Davis needs to be the best big man on the floor, and he may be the only big man on the floor, which is something he's been reluctant to do at times. And I think in this series, it's more important than ever to be able to take advantage of his size, his athleticism, his strength, and all of the gifts that he has. But I'll ask you this, because this is something you and I have discussed even recently on my radio show in LA about the Lakers' potential struggles against teams that like to play 4 and 5 out. What are your thoughts on this matchup? Because there are definitely going to be 5 guys around the perimeter. How do the Lakers stack up in that regard?
Yeah, that's the imposing of identity thing I was talking about. The idea is that if you look at the Lakers, the games they lost or were close losses for them during the regular season, particularly from March and before, is any team that spread the floor, any team that had 5 guys on the perimeter, either their big was a 3-point shooter or their big was a guy who initiates a lot of offense from the top. When they did that, the Lakers really struggled. Their bigs don't want to leave the paint. They couldn't play really Dwight Howard or JaVale McGee. They're forced to play Anthony Davis at the 5 as a position that he doesn't quite like. And when they go small like that, with Davis at the 5 and Kuzma at the 4, they got outplayed a bunch of times by some of these smaller teams. So if Houston is able to trick the Lakers into playing small, to matching up with them, then I think Houston has the upper hand. However, if the Lakers can maintain their identity, say, well, no, we're going to play basketball the way it's always been played, with 2 bigs on the floor, then I think they've got a great advantage over the Rockets.
Jackie, you mentioned Zach Lowe's article on Harden and the huge opportunity to kind of change the narrative and potentially take down LeBron and the Lakers and company. So what version of Harden do you expect to see in this series?
Well, it's got to be the Harden that scores 28, 30 points a game. They need that from him. But I do think it's interesting what Amin is discussing here in terms of whether Frank Vogel will blink and stick with his regular lineup, which gets JaVale McGee minutes and Dwight Howard minutes and those guys, or if he does go small. So that's why, even we talk a lot about Harden and Westbrook, the guy we should really be focusing on in this series is P.J. Tucker. He's the one that's going to be trying to guard Anthony Davis. And we know he gives up size and all of that, but P.J. Tucker has proven to be very resilient in this role since they've gone small ball. He's been a very central part to them. He benefited the most of anybody from this pandemic because he was exhausted just before we stopped play, and now he's rested up and ready to take on these big
Jackie,
fellas.
I'll give you one more X-Factor name, a guy you know very well, Jeff Green. He's been playing lights out. His ability at 6'9" to play as a big but shoot threes as well as he has, that's a game changer for the Rockets as well.
All right, coming up.
I agree. Jeff Green has had, I can't count how many plays. Oh, I'm sorry, George. We have a little delay. But I was just going to say that Jeff Green I can't count how many teams he's played for, and I get teased every time, Amin, and I think, this is it. Oh my gosh, he's okay, maybe not.
Hey,
I'm just
listen,
might be
saying.
the one,
I
though.
love Jeff Green
This
personally.
might be the one.
you and everyone else in the NBA
I
community.
hope it is. I like Jeff Green. He's a wonderful person.
Yeah, but I do think that he may have found himself a nice home in this particular on this particular team for sure.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and